Hi guys, Squall here, and welcome to our first look video of Satisfactory, the game. Satisfactory, what is it? Well, the first most notable comparison is with Factorio. Factorio is a wonderful game, and if you've ever played it, you'll know how addictive it can be. Now, Satisfactory, as you can see, is completely in 3D, whereas Factorio is completely in 2D. And that's not just where the differences begin and end, but let's talk about that later. Let me start to show you around the game a little bit. So I'm up here in a little tower, and this is the factory that I have thus far created. I'm currently playing this on the test weekend. The test weekend is for those who sort of bought into the alpha. The actual early access release for this game is the 19th of March, which is in a couple of weeks' time. This is currently limited into what tech level I can achieve. The early access game will unlock a few more tiers. But essentially what you've got here in Satisfactory is alien world colonization kind of meets factory logistics kind of game. So when you play through at the start, you land on this planet, your employer throws you onto this planet and basically says, get to work. And what you then have to do is use the resources of the planet, coal, biomass, limestone, iron, copper, all the elements that you need to make things. And then slowly but surely do some research and start to assemble different elements that manufacture things for you. You can see what's going on down here with various products moving down the belts, being processed into other things, going into containers, being made into other stuff, and typical factory chain logistics going on here. You'll also notice these foundation tiles that I've laid out, which allow you to build a factory floor, and you can also build walls. You can even build up vertically. You can have stuff on top of other stuff. You can have a second floor of the factory. You could wall this off completely. Conveyor belts can go up. It gets very, very interesting in what you can do. But what I want to do is just kind of walk you around my factory a little bit, and we'll talk about the game. Okay, I fell off the ladder. Keep doing that. So the game was developed by Coffee Stain Studios. Coffee Stain Studios are the people, or the people that brought you the Sanctum and Goat Sim franchises. They often publish games, but this one's been developed by them in-house. It's actually published by Epic Games, which unfortunately means if you're not a Fortnite player, then you're going to have to install the Epic installer in order to play this game, which I had to do, and it then tries to nag you into playing Fortnite, which I totally ignored. Now, as you can see, the world is very, very pretty. There's a day-night cycle, but the nights aren't too dark on this planet. This is one of the biomes. There are 3 biomes available on early access launch, but on this test weekend, we only get to play in this biome, which is quite green. However, if you head off in that direction, it tends to turn a bit sort of sandy and rocky, and it has some caves with some nasties in it. We'll talk about that in a bit. What we've got here is, this is an iron ore kind of mine. This is one of the early portable miners that you get to build. But this is the big boy that you build later. This is a miner which sits there and grinds iron ore and chucks it out onto this conveyor belt that I built. And that then runs down into this thing. This thing is a splitter. Now, if you've played Factorio, you'll know that stuff in Factorio gets split 2 ways, but in this game, it gets split 3 ways. You can see there are 3 different outputs here. But I'm only using 2 of them. They then feed into these smelters here, which are a bit like Factorio furnaces. And if you look at this, they basically take something. There's different recipes. They can smelt copper or iron. And obviously iron ore will be turned into iron ingots. And the rates are shown here. This becomes important when you're optimizing your factory, because you need to know how much material to give it, how much it's going to be producing, therefore how many of these you need in order to fill up a conveyor belt. Now, these conveyor belts are single in size. In Factorio, a belt is split into 2 lanes, a left and a right lane, and you can have different materials on each side. In Satisfactory, there's only 1 lane on the belt, but you can still put different materials on it. It just alternates what's on there. Now, these iron ingots are then moving into the opposite of a splitter, which is a merger. Again, this is a 3-to-1 effectively. So what's happening here, we're using 2 inputs and 1 output, but you can have another input in there. So you can have 3 into 1, and then this comes down the line. These iron ingots, which have been lovely smelted, come down the line, and they go into constructors. Now, constructors can build various things. This particular one is turning iron ingots into iron plates, and you can already see that there's a difference between 30 per minute, 15 per minute. You can see there's a difference between how much is coming in versus what's going out, but it is taking 2 at a time. There are various recipes here. Constructors can make all kinds of things. I won't talk about the details of these. I'll do a playthrough, and it's easy to show you later what they do. But, you know, you get the idea. There's effectively a tech tree, and things can be manufactured into other things. There's storage chests like this, which can be used to buffer products going through your factory. And, you know, goods get produced, and here you can see a iron plates being made, and I'm belting this kind of up and over this belt, which is where it differs from Factorio greatly. In Factorio, you'll have to sort of, you know, go underground, and then in order to allow 2 belts to kind of cross over each other. In this game, you can just build up. You can have belts just going really high and up onto another level of the factory if you want to, which is completely unique. And then this is an assembler. So this is like Factorio's got these assemblers in it. These things can take multiple products in and assemble more complex items. So in this particular one, it's taking iron plates and screws, and it's making reinforced iron plates, which kind of come out here like that. And if you want to, you can just run over and pick things off the belt, like, you know, we can just take that item off the belt if we want to. Otherwise, it's going through this buffer, and then it's being split off, and it's being made into these modular frames. That's more or less at the end of the current tech tree, a modular frame. But over here, I've got something cool that you might want to see. This is a tractor, and this is a truck station. Now, there are no trains in the game currently, but they will be added fairly soon. Like, I think it's around April or May they're going to add those things. But you can jump inside this tractor here, and you can sort of drive it around like this. And the really cool thing about the tractor is you can program it. So if you remember a thing called Big Track in the 80s, it looked a bit like this, and you could record stuff and you could tell it what route to take. If I click start recording, you can see down the bottom there it says vehicle path is being recorded. And if I turn around, you can see the little breadcrumb trail it's leaving, so you know where it's actually going. And what you can do with this is you can tell it to drive from perhaps a coal mine and then back, you know, at a coal mine there'll be a truck station. Finish recording. You might have a coal mine, which is over there, you can see. That's generating my power. You see the chimneys in the distance? I could tell this thing to drive over to there, to a truck station, load up on coal, and then drive somewhere else and unload it into the generators. Cool stuff like that. So what you do now is you say, enable autopilot, and then jump out, and it should, there it goes, autopilot active, drive itself. It will pay attention to the speed and the route that you took, and it will just keep driving all day long until it runs out of fuel. But luckily, when it gets to a truck station, you can basically put fuel in here, and it will load the fuel up. It can also unload and unload in the truck station, and this is where you belt stuff in for the truck station to load into the truck and so forth. So you can create your own little logistic networks using this. So it's kind of cool, so we'll just disable that so it doesn't drive around. Anyway, that's the tractor. So up here, you may be wondering what this huge thing is here. That's the space elevator. Remember I said to you, your sort of employer drops you on the planet and asks you to do things? Well, your employer is effectively in orbit up there and giving you instructions. And what you can do is you can build a space elevator which connects to the orbiter, and then you can send materials up. It's like sacrificing to the gods, I guess. You send materials up, and in return, you unlock tech levels. That's what's going on in a nutshell. And it all begins and ends here in the hub. The hub is the thing that you get at the start of the game, and the hub is where you do your research and you configure what tech stuff you want to unlock. So let's quickly have a look at this. So tier 0 is what you start with. There are currently 3 tiers of tech in this version of the game, which is the alpha weekend, as you can see top left. When this game releases on early access on the 19th, we'll have 4, 5, and 6 unlocked. So we'll have 6 tiers. 7 and 8 will be coming further down the line. So a tech tier, effectively, when you've given it all the materials, it sends the rocket up and it unlocks various things. So you can see this particular upgrade will unlock a crafting bench and a workshop and a smelter and some of the things that I've shown you already. Whereas some of these other things will start to unlock constructors and power poles and all the rest of it. You get the idea. As you go through the tech levels, you start to get splitters, you start to get storage boxes and scanners, and this is where you get walls. At tech level 2, you start to get the chainsaw, you get these jump pads. You may wonder why you get jump pads. It's because some things, some alien creatures are perched on rocks and you need to get up there to harvest them to get power shards and things. Walkways, color cartridges, and then it sort of ends with, you know, tractor, truck station, and the coal generator. So that's like roughly the tech tree that's going on. When you do get items, you bring them into the MAM, the MAM, and this is where you drop items in. You drop them in here.
R&D has repurposed a common engineering tool to assist you in your defense against the local wildlife.
Lovely.
The blueprint is now accessible in the hub.
The woman does drone on a little bit. So you drop items into here and it researches it, and that will give you various benefits that you can then achieve. It's kind of cool. So these are the generators that you start with. Biomass burners. You drop biomass in there and they generate power for you. Power is important because it basically powers all your machines. These are the power poles that you can build. Now, power poles can have up to 4 cables attached to them, no more than 4, so you always need to be careful when you build them, because if I wanted to expand on this, I can't connect to it anymore. I would need to disconnect something and connect something else. And then up there, we've got the copper mine coming down into here, which is making these copper ingots, making cables. And then finally, we've got the limestone over here, which is used in construction. So in order to construct things, you basically... That's a ping, that's the wrong option. In order to construct things, you can come down here and say, I want to build a crafting bench, and you spin it around with the mouse wheel, and then you simply drop it down like that. And then if you want to get rid of it, you press F, hold it down, and it'll deconstruct, and you get all the materials back. So, although laying, you know, when you lay things out like this was obviously the early game where I didn't have any foundations down. If I wanted to move this, I just literally disassemble it, move it somewhere else, reassemble it. The only thing is, at the moment, is although you can upgrade these belts, this is a conveyor belt, there's a conveyor belt 2, which is quicker. Doesn't appear to be a way of upgrading things in situ like you can in Factorio. I have to disassemble this. These materials will then go in my backpack and then reconnect it. But perhaps that feature will come later. So yeah, you can build various things using this. So for example, if I go foundations like that, I can build concrete floor. And then as you can see, it's snapping the next one to it like that. And that's how we connect the floor together. If I wanted to build, let's say I build a, I don't know, for example, a constructor. Now, when you build a constructor, you notice it has an in and an out. The orange is the in, and the green is the out. And if I drop that down like that, there's a constructor, and I can then do some conveyor belt like this, drag the conveyor belt out, and that's how you connect things up. Notice the hotbar on the bottom. So if I press 7, for example, I have a conveyor splitter, but I can't build one because I don't have the materials for it. But I could, for example, build a storage container. No, I don't have the materials for that either. But you get the idea. You can basically connect your factory together and create production chains. Now, there is exploration in the game. There are various elements, things that you can find that have no purpose just yet. I have some of them in my storage box. For example, quartz is a material that you'll find, but you can't currently do anything with it. That stuff comes later. These watchtowers are useful to give you an overview of your factory, because unlike in Factorio, where you're always looking at a top-down view of the game, in this game, you're kind of always, you're on the ground, you're in 3D, which is, let's not be, you know, let's be clear here, it is a beautiful game, but when you're on the ground in 3D, it's not conducive to great design, because you need to get an overall picture. You can see some of the kind of wonky stuff I've got going here. You could, if you was up here and you were saying, you know, drag that to there, that would be a lot easier than being on the ground trying to design it. So there is that downside to being in 3D, which is not present in Factorio, and these watchtowers are useful for getting up here and looking at how things are going. Now, in terms of the current tech, like I said, we have 6 tech trees. There are 3 starting biomes, but there's only this one available. Now, each biome is not procedurally generated. These are handcrafted worlds. They're 30 square kilometers, which is about 5.4 kilometers by 5.4 kilometers. So 30 square kilometers. There are indigenous creatures here. For example, this thing flying around. There's stuff on the ground that walks around that's cute and fluffy, and there are other things that attack you. But each biome will obviously have different creatures. In fact, I think you can see some creatures in the distance there. There's some weird things walking around, which I will show you. But equipment and weapons, you've got this item here. You've got this, which you can sort of zap things with. It's like an electrical zapper. That's pretty much your primary weapon currently. There's also a chainsaw. The problem with the chainsaw is it's only used for chopping trees down. You can't actually use it as a weapon. I did try it, but it doesn't seem to do anything. So that's the limitation. There's no gun turrets at the moment in the tech trees. The aliens never actually attack you. Like, they never raid you in quantity. They don't seem to breed that I can work out. You know, like, I'm obviously drawing comparisons with Factorio. But there are alien creatures, and there is a multiplayer. Now, multiplayer works pretty well, actually, considering this is an alpha. I played it multiplayer just fine. Apparently, the game supports 1 to 4 players in multiplayer, but it doesn't limit you on how many you actually play with. So you can try the game with more than 4 players, but officially they only support 1 to 4. Dedicated server support is coming later, as is mod support. That's much further down the line. Currently, there's nothing beyond coal power in the game, although I did see on the roadmap plans for nuclear power generation. So, essentially, when you play this game, you're going to have to start running around harvesting biomatter in order to power your factory. But later on, when you get coal, that's the primary way to power your factory. Now, what I did here was I didn't actually... There's a coal mine down there. In fact, let's take a drive down to it and we'll talk about that. There's a coal mine down there, quite far away. In order to find resources in the game, what you do is use your scanner. So if I wanted to find a coal mine like this, or coal resource, I choose coal, and then I scan. And then at the top of the screen, there's a ping, 400 meters that way. There's another one, 800 meters that way. And there's another one, 1.2 kilometers that way. So that's how you sort of find resources, which you then extract. Now, the coal is obviously 400 meters away, and I thought, well, you know, we could just bring it back here and you know, with a truck and have it generate. But then why not just actually use it in situ and just connect the power here, which is what I've done. So you can see the power line, the power poles are connected along here. Now the power poles actually run quite a long way, which is kind of cool. In Factorio they're a lot shorter, but in this they do seem to run a fair distance. Let's go down there. You can see some of the freedom that you get to construct bridges and ramps, put walls up, so you can actually make pretty cool links between the different different rocks and things. These are the coal generators, and this is the coal mine. So this is a coal power. As you can see, it's got coal feeding into it. This is the coal mine itself. It's throwing coal into a splitter. The splitter is then feeding this thing, which is the coal generator. Coal's coming in. You can see the consumption here going up and down as things are made in the factory, and this is the current capacity. Now notice down here, there's a power shard. There are creatures on the planet that you can harvest, and then you can turn them into power shards, and they will, once you've done the research, that will boost, you can boost the clock speed of your machine. Not just this generator, but other machines in the factory. But they will take a lot more power when they do that. But effectively, you can see you can drop in other power shards and overclock them if you want to get more out of that particular machine. That one there's floating on some foundation, which looks kind of cool. So that is how we're generating power. Once you've got this online, it will generate power all day long until the resource runs out, but currently the resources don't seem to run out. I don't know if that will ever change, but they don't seem to run out currently. Now, like I said, there's nothing beyond the coal power. There's no kind of... let's talk about comparisons with Factorio then, because if you've played Factorio, which is a wonderful game, obviously it's probably the closest thing that we can draw comparisons to in terms of features. People who play Factorio will be looking for similar features in this game, and vice versa. There's nothing beyond coal power. There are no inserters. There are no things that kind of insert material off the belt into other thing. Instead, this game adopts the approach, as you can see, of just having like an input box and an output box, and you belt stuff directly into it. There are no blueprints in the game, so you can't lay things out in your factory and help with the design. There are no constructor bots, no logistic bots currently. I don't know if any of these things are planned, but I'm just telling you what's not in the game, if you like. There's no defined win condition currently, so there's no like overall objective of what you have to do to win the game. Essentially, it's a little bit sandboxy in that sense. You're dropped onto a planet, you're given a bunch of tech tiers, you kind of run around, build your own factories, do cool designs. There's lots to do currently in the game, but it is an early access game. Now, on their website, they talk about taking something like up to a year, or maybe a bit more, to actually finish the game, but they don't actually have a defined win condition yet. So we don't really know how long that's going to go on for. Let me just get myself off it. Oh man, I tell you what, I should have built a slope here, shouldn't I? It's so difficult to get up this thing. Foundations, not that one. Foundations, we won't let them. Build a slope. It's so difficult to climb up though without the slope. There's no defined win condition in the game, so they're not sure how long they're going to take to actually complete it, but what they have said is they're going to be looking at about a year, but they have said also they think that this game has many years of future possibilities in the things that they can do. They've got a lot of ideas for things they can do later on. The map is limited, like I say, so it's not a procedurally generated world. They are all handcrafted, so each biome when you land on it will look pretty much the same each time you land on it. Now, whether you can land in different parts of the map, that's slightly unclear at the moment. So I just thought we'd go for a little drive and I'll show you kind of how crazy and beautiful this world can get. You can harvest these trees with the chainsaw and you get a lot of biomass off them, which is useful. The tech tree, I think, needs a little bit of tuning. Here's a creature. So nothing attacks you when you're in your tractor, but the moment you get out, everybody just runs over and wants to say hi. Now, you might think you can run over these things, but you actually can't. Well, you can run over them, but it doesn't kill them. It just kind of knocks them out for a little bit. So you can't go around squishing alien creatures. The biome does change as you drive around it. And you also find kind of crashed alien craft, if you like previous adventurers that were here. And they often crash in their spaceship and materials will be left. But there will be materials that you need to sort of unlock as well. So you need to provide something in order to unlock it. If you've ever played Astroneer, it's similar to that idea. Now this thing here, don't go near this when you're not in your tractor, because that gas there will kill you very quickly, and you can't actually kill that thing. This particular part of the biome is littered with those things. And you can quite easily get yourself lost. You can see it goes all watery down there. But like I say, there's a massive amount of adventuring to do here, but not a lot of particular objectives to achieve. That's going to be something we'll just have to wait for. But it is a beautiful looking game. The roadmap as it stands is they're going to focus after release on the 19th. They're going to focus on fixing crashes and bugs and that kind of thing. By the end of April, they'll have added the research chains for quartz and sulfur and conveyor lifts. By the end of May, they will have added Tier 7, which is going to add aluminium and nuclear options, trains, and other late game stuff. Let's do this. Look at this. Oh my god. And completely immune. No damage was taken. But if you get out of this thing... Oh boy. Okay. I guess that's a bug. The last time I did that, I lost my tractor and it pinged about... Oh, there it is. It pinged about 1 kilometer away. So yeah, it does have the odd little glitch. But I didn't actually steal my tractor like it did last time and throw it somewhere else. One to watch out for. Remember, early access. So end of May, they're going to have like late game stuff, trains to move materials around. So in summary then, this game is like £28. You can buy it from the Satisfactory game website. You will need the Epic Games to install it. It comes out on the 19th into early access. Is it worth it? I think absolutely it's worth it. I was a bit worried about this game at first. because I didn't think that 3D was going to scale very well in terms of factory construction, but I'm happy to say the performance is actually pretty good. I don't think it will ever scale to the level of Factorio. I don't think you're ever going to see thousands of bots running around. But what is here is actually very fun. And it does have different elements to Factorio. Of course, you know, you've got the extraction of goods, the transformation, the construction, you know, optimizing your supply chain. You've got all of that in both games. But where they start to differ is I can't see you having 7,000 bots flying around in this game like you can in Factorio, for example. I think that's just a limitation of being 3D. Drawing that kind of stuff would just melt your GPU. Vertical space is where this game gets very, very interesting, something you can't do in Factorio. In this game, you can build things on top of other things and stack them, you know, and build conveyor belts going up to it, so it kind of opens the door for some pretty interesting designs, and that's where this game starts to feel like its own. Also, there's literally nothing like this in Factorio. This kind of beautiful alien cavern. Oh, there's a spider. Did I mention there's spiders in this game? There's small ones in the cave. There are big ones. Luckily, if you have a massive fear of spiders, there is an arachnophobia option. Let me just jump out and have some fun. Worry. Come here, dude. There you go. So they're the little ones. But the big one, the mama, is scary. Like, she's huge, and she does this, like, jump attack, which is terrifying. But there is an arachnophobia option, which basically turns these things into cute, fluffy kittens. In case you really are terrified of spiders, and I know a lot of people are. Personally, I don't mind them, but each to his own. This is something you'll never see in Factorio, is this kind of beautiful, biome-changing universe with lots to explore. And that's where it differs. It kind of feels like an alien exploration, colonization game, blended with factory logistics, and that with an overarching kind of goal, which is obviously set by the employer that drops you here. I think this game has huge potential. I think it's worth buying, even for early access. There's a ton of playability here, and a lot of fun to be had. I look forward to sort of making some designs and seeing where we can take this game. But like I say, the tech tiers are limited currently, and you're going to have to wait for later content in order to be able to start to do things like trains and nuclear power and all that kind of good stuff. But that will come. That's just part of early access. It's good to hear that they have a notional limit of a year. Personally, I expect early access to last, I'd say probably longer, maybe 18 months, at most 2 years, before you'll see a final release. But I think they'll want to release because they'll be looking to sort of DLC this, I would imagine. Anyway, I think that's given you a decent overview of Factorio. If you want to see a playthrough, I'm going to play through this game from the beginning, and when it releases on the 19th, I'll carry it on, because obviously I'll be tech limited. As it stands at the moment, the free weekend ends today at 5 o'clock, so I've only got a few hours to record some videos. But if you want to see a playthrough, I shall start one and link it in this video description, and you can see what it's like to play it through from the start. But I wanted to show you what you can do with it and give you a decent overview of the game. Hope you enjoyed my first look video, guys. If you do decide to go ahead and buy it, let me know in the comments what you think and how you find the game, and if you would like me to make sort of more videos on this kind of thing. I have considered putting Factorio on the channel, but decided against it. But maybe Satisfactory is something that you would be happy to see. Let me know in the comments, because I do obviously value your feedback. And until the next video, guys, take care and happy manufacturing.